Namaste, friends. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference 2026, Walking the Path of Love Together. I'm Happy Jack, the founder of Happy Jack Yoga, and we're very blessed to open this session last week from Harvard Divinity School with Keshava Swami, as well as Dean Teddy. And we'll be closing the conference at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies with Radhanath Swami and Shaunaka Rishi Prabhu. This is our second annual conference. Again, we've got like 40-ish speakers, anywhere from scholars to monks to musicians to spiritual leaders. And we have all of you, grateful to be on the path with you. At this point, over 6,000 yogis, individuals, beautiful souls from around the world have registered, from the Harvard community, from the devotee or Bhakti Yoga community, of course from our yoga community who we see here now. And really it's a space to create spiritual friendships, to come together in inquiry and to generate community and connection. So thank you for being here. For those who are here live with us, leave a message in the chat. Let us know where in the world you're calling in from, because we are getting ready to introduce our first virtual speaker. Please welcome to the virtual stage His Holiness Krishna-Kshetra Swami Maharaj. We're so happy to have you here with us.
I'm so happy to be here with you again.
Yes.
And it was happy to be with you just a few weeks ago in Vrindavan.
Yes, that was a beautiful experience, and we're honored to have you back to the conference, Maharaj. I'll read a bio and then say a few words, and then we'll dive into our beautiful conversation today. So, Krishna-Kshetra Swami, teacher, writer, and traveler, is a disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He has served as a missionary, temple priest, and counselor for Bhakti Yoga practitioners from the time of his formal initiation in 1972. From 72 to 76, he was based in Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark. Then he began to participate in Vaishnava missionary activities in Central Europe. Almost every year, from 1978 to 1995, he visited India on pilgrimage. In 1995, as coordinator of a research group, he compiled and published Pancharatra Pradipa in 2 volumes, a manual for Chaitanya Vaishnava temple worship. He also served ISKCON's GBC as the minister for deity worship from then until 2005. In 2004, after 8 years of university study, resuming his interrupted studies from 1972, he received a PhD degree from the University of Oxford St. Cross College for his dissertation on Chaitanya Vaishnava image worship, now available from Routledge Publishers as Attending Krishna's Image, Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva as Devotional Truth, 2006, as a book in the Hindu Studies series. And there's a new book as well, I'll just put out there, which we get to talk about today. A new book just came out called Yoga and Animal Ethics. And so we'll get to chat about that. Just a few more things. Krishna-Kshetra Swami is now a research fellow for the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. He also teaches at Bhaktivedanta College, Radhadesh, since 2002. He recently taught survey courses in Indian religions and Asian religions in the religion department at the University of Florida, Gainesville. Beginning in September 2007, he began teaching at Chinese University of Hong Kong, courses in Indian religion and culture. After a full year of teaching, he then continued to teach 1 semester per year for the next 4 years. Since then, he's been giving lectures at several universities in the People's Republic of China. Amidst academic work, he also travels extensively, teaching about spiritual life as comprehended in the Vaishnav devotional bhakti tradition coming from Sri Chaitanya. And then there's a list of countries that he has studied, taught, counseled, and participated in spiritual community building. It looks like about 40 countries from Argentina to United States. But we're just so honored to have you here. I mean, a few things. You prolific author. These 2 books are go-to books for us at Harvard Divinity School. Professor Kalini regularly includes them in our studies. And Maharaj, as you said, we got to be together in December in Vrindavan on retreat with the Oxford Center. And I just got to say, it was really beautiful to have that time together with you. I really feel that you genuinely care and took time. Like, we had so many beautiful conversations. You're always there, always willing to sit down, have breakfast or lunch or, on pilgrimage. And it just really means a lot for us newer seekers who have a lot of questions and are trying to find our way. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, that was my pleasure, and I think also the pleasure of the others who were facilitating, especially with you, because you're so naturally inquisitive in such a nice way. So this inspires naturally.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It really was an honor, and that's really a purpose of us coming together here today, is to be inquisitive, to ask questions. The theme of our title of our talk today is multi-species community. And we were just talking. We have a Sunday satsang call every week on Sundays, and we were just talking about cat lovers and dog lovers. And I said, you guys, you're gonna love tomorrow's session. It's very important, because we might often think about sacred community. We're thinking about people. That's just naturally where our mind goes. But it's bigger than that. And so maybe to open up, if we could ask, we like to, as we did with you last year, we like to begin by asking, what brought you to your spiritual path, and maybe in that as well, because your book, this new book, Yoga and Animal Ethics, it really invites us to rethink our relationship with animals through the lens of yoga. And so maybe a little, if you could, your personal story, if you could talk about what first awakened your heart to this question. Like, why did animals become part of your spiritual path?
It's always difficult to speak about oneself in a cohesive way. It feels like sort of making up story as something cohesive that may be in reality less cohesive. But if we connect the theme with animals, I suppose we could start back in childhood, like so many of you, very possibly having so-called pets at home. A cat or a dog. We had, when I was very small, a very big cat named Figaro. Figaro. And I think somewhere along the line, it became a question in my mind, who is this? We had a cat and then we had dogs. Who is this person inside this four-legged body who is relating with us, myself and other family members? I remember my mother, when we had a small dog, she started cooking for the dog, cooking special meals every day. And the rest of us thought, wow, this is over the top. But, she had some kind of feeling like this is important. Anyway, fast forward, so many years, and I have lived in communities where there have been cows, especially, and I mentioned this in the previous book that I wrote, Cow Care in Hindu Animal Ethics. For some time, I lived at Singachalam, Germany, where they still have cows. They don't have as many as they had back then. At that time, I think they had around 20 cows or so. Now it's 6 or 7, I believe. And it felt like this is the way. This was approximating, even if only in a distant way, something about ideal community. I had this sense that the fact that this community is caring for these cows for their entire natural lives is very special and is good for all of us. It's good for the cows, and it's good for all of us who are living in that community. I had that sense. Fast forward again, and go, as you mentioned, I went to university, or I returned to university. And although my doctoral work was on a different topic, when the opportunity came to focus on, or the suggestion came to look at this idea of animal ethics, somehow this really rang some bells in me. This is something that really goes deep, I felt, in what should be important for our whole society. So if I could contribute something to that, as we say, discourse, then I would be happy to do so. Yeah. So I was now getting to the book, Yoga and Animal Ethics. As I mentioned, this is a second book in a series published by Palgrave Macmillan, a subsidiary of Springer Nature, which has about, the series on animal ethics has about 50 volumes, monographs now. And I was invited to contribute a volume, which I did, as I mentioned, about cows. And then because I was able to do the fundraising for it to be published open access, it's had quite good reception. I think it's up to 84,000 downloads since 2020. So the editor of the series said, "Why don't you write another book?" And that's when I started thinking about this subject of yoga and animal ethics, which I see as two themes that come quite naturally together. And so I thought, yes, we need to explore this, try to spell it out.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, and you bring this, into connection, into conversation with yoga, which is very fitting because we have many yoga teachers and yoga practitioners here. And of course, for those who have done some studies, we know that the yoga tradition speaks of ahimsa, this Sanskrit term, nonviolence, as really a foundation of spiritual life. And so if we truly lived and embraced ahimsa, like deeply, how do you think, how might that transform the way we relate, not just to humans, but to animals, to the planet, to the natural world? How important is this? Because it could just be a one little sutra in the Yoga Sutras, or one word here. What's the potential here?
The potential would be huge. Even Leo Tolstoy, the 19th century Russian novelist, is quoted, and I believe it is a proper quote from him, that as long as we maintain slaughterhouses, so long there will continue to be battlefields. And especially as we speak today, we're hearing of so much war. If we really want to get to the root of the problem, it seems to me the starting point is, how are we relating with animals? And that's why I thought it's maybe good to start your series with on community, with multi-species community as a starting point, which is also a kind of challenging starting point. It's kind of the last thing we think of when we think of community, usually, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we think of community, we think of our friends, we think of family, we think of maybe extended groups of human beings. And so what if we think instead, what if we start with thinking about multi-species community? So, and the starting point of that would be, as you say, the taking to heart this principle of Ahimsa, which in the in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, as you said, it's the starting point, but also the commentary, the classical commentary to the Yoga Sutras by a certain Vyasa, not Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, but some Vyasa, very much emphasizes that this principle, Ahimsa, is the foundation for all the other practices of yama, or restraint, self-restraint, the first step in yoga, and niyama, or the practices in the second limb of the Ashtanga yoga system.
Yeah.
So the prospect of people taking this principle seriously, it becomes more and more difficult to imagine as we look at the news feeds, and yet how can we give up this principle? How can we abandon it? It is so really essential, we could say, to our distinction, if we want to insist that there is something exceptional about human beings. We could say it begins with this ability to make the choice, a conscious choice, to act in such ways as to at least minimize, as far as possible, our harming of other beings. And then that becomes the possibility of opening ourselves to multi-species community, as I see it.
Yeah, I love that. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that Ahimsa is the first of the yamas, right? It's like right at the beginning of the yoga path. It's, as you say, the foundation. And when we speak about, so our title is multi-species community. When we speak of multi-species community or Ahimsa, that principle, what would it actually look like in everyday life? Like, let's just get, you mentioned about the, what Tolstoy said, that's pretty powerful, about if, the connection between slaughterhouses and battlefields or war. But what would that look like in everyday life? How might a yoga teacher begin to see animals, not as resources, but as fellow participants in this sacred community of life?
Yes, the practical application,
Yeah.
indeed. I think a starting point is what we are, many people, familiar with, and that is having what we typically call pets or companion animals. And in effect, extending, there is a principle which comes in, which is very much developed in some texts of the Buddhist tradition. It's kind of hinted at in the Yoga Sutras, but not elaborated. But in one text, Buddhist text called the Visuddhamagga, this Brahma Vihara principle is elaborated, where it invites us to practice a meditation of infinitely extending four attitudes. The attitude of well-wishing, wishing well-being on other beings. Compassion, so there's Mitra, Karuna, Mudita. Mudita means feeling joyful, feeling happy at others' happiness. And equanimity, upeksha, with respect to beings that maybe have animosity or some dangerous, predator animal, to have a sense of upeksha or neutrality. Sometimes this is argued to be, it is said to be the foundation, neutrality or equanimity to all beings, out of which then other, you could say, more positive, stronger feelings can be developed. But the point that I make in this book, Yoga and Animal Ethics, is that yoga is very much about meditation in the more advanced stages, and that meditation can be a kind of active function in which one extends beyond the conventional boundaries of one's ordinary thinking these attitudes. So, for example, Mitra, friendliness, is a feeling that we naturally have in relation to friends. Yeah. But what if we extend that, first of all, to those with whom we have minimal interaction, and then extend further to those with whom we may have no interaction, or those who we may have they may see us as their enemy, and so on. Each of these four attitudes are extended in that way. So that becomes a kind of active meditation, which can be then extended to non-human animals.
Yeah.
So many people have very strong feelings about their companion animals, their dogs, their cats, even their turtles. And people have all kinds of animals now. Yeah. So that feeling that we can experience, can we extend it? How can we extend it? We can extend it with some practice. That's the idea.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just hearing you share it, a Bhagavad Gita verse that comes to mind, and I just know a few. I've got a few memorized. I'm sure a fraction that you do. But one of the ones that I love is Vidya Vinaye Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshanaha.
Samadarshana, yes.
Yes. And so, these yogic texts speak about equal vision, seeing the same divine reality in all beings. And can you actually just help make the connection? Like, just being honest and straightforward. I come from a Christian family. I love my family. Had a beautiful Sunday dinner with them yesterday. And their belief, their understanding objectively, is that, animals don't have a soul. So that's the difference. That's why we don't kill humans, but it's okay to kill animals. That's the understanding, at least from people that I've associated with. Can you just help make that connection? You know, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, our understanding from Sanatana Dharma, this idea, right? You know, I mean, it says right there, whether it's a cow, whether it's a dog, whether it's an
Chapter
outcast.
5, Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Please.
Yes, so the idea that animals don't have a soul is actually inaccurate Christian theology. It's understood from classical, my understanding of classical Christian theology is, which derives from Aristotle, as far as I remember, is that animals have animal souls or some such. So, but the point remains that it's taken that therefore it's all right. It's all right to kill animals, although even there they will not. That's often misused. I would just put it that way. It's often misused. The statement in the Bhagavad Gita does point to our understanding from Vedic or post-Vedic tradition that the Atman, the self, is there in all living beings. And it's not that one has a soul, but rather that one is a soul. And similarly, the animal doesn't. We can agree the animal doesn't have a soul. Why? Because it is a soul in an animal body.
Yes.
And the verse that you quote doesn't imply that one should act exactly the same with respect to all different beings. There is a commentary, I believe it's by Abhinavagupta, a Shaivite from the Kashmir Shaiva tradition, a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita I refer to also in the book. That he refers specifically to this verse and says, this is not to be understood that therefore we act the same with regard to all these different beings. No, but we recognize all these beings as soul and therefore act appropriately and not in a way which is exploiting. The key issue is instrumentality, and we have this issue because we have a sense of ownership of animals. The sort of more extreme position of some who champion veganism or vegan diet and so on, sometimes called abolitionists, argue that if we want to get to the right position of becoming completely free from violence, we need to give up the idea of ownership of animals, because as soon as there is ownership, there will be exploitation, because ownership means ultimately one has the power of life or life and death over the being that one owns. I discussed this also not in this yoga and animal ethics, but in the cow care book. This is discussed by, what is her name, Sue Donaldson and Will Kimlicka in their book, I'm just now forgetting the name, Tropolis, I think it's called, Zoopolis, something like that, where they talk about the possibility of seeing animals, domesticated animals, as citizens. And they analyze what do we generally understand as qualifying for citizenship. We have a sort of, I think they call it a cognitivism bias, which requires of a citizen to have certain characteristics. But if we set that aside and take other considerations, then it becomes possible to think of the animals that we domesticate and therefore engage in for our benefit in various ways. So we may engage bulls and cows. We may take the milk of the cows. We may take some labor of the oxen, and we may make them oxen for that purpose from bulls. We can begin to see these beings as citizens with rights, and those rights, of course, the idea of animal rights has been circulating for some decades, and this can be extended by understanding, by exploring the idea of animals being citizens. One may think, well, that means they will be second-class citizens, no doubt. Well, it's a work in progress, as Donaldson and Kimlicka say, but it's a process which can be understood even today if we think about the reality in India, less and less so, but still there, of seeing cows wandering the streets along with the people and the traffic.
Yeah.
And I've included in the cows book one photograph I personally made in Puri of an ox that's having a meal that was offered, a full big pot of rice was offered by one merchant, one shopkeeper, just for this cow. And just that image of this freely roaming ox through the street where no one is bothering him, strikes me as showing the possibility of understanding and living such a life where there is a sense of animal citizenship, specifically of domesticated animals.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, it just those memories and thinking back to in India, it's true that the cows, dogs as well, just beautifully respected. I remember just a couple months ago when we were in India, I was on a particular bus trip, and there was like a family of cows just sitting in the middle of a motorway. And people just, you know, go around, no problem. You know, there's a respect. It's a beautiful thing. And I guess maybe coming back to the practical side, you know, just seeing our yoga community here and those watching, for someone practicing yoga today, maybe asana, maybe meditation, you know, what small shifts in awareness or lifestyle could help us live in harmony. So we heard you talk about pets. And I see some pet lovers, Rita, Sarah George, I'm sure others. You talked about veganism. I know yourself, Maharaj, you and I are both vegan, as some others on the call. I think back to, you know, I've got a leather jacket from my engineering days, and and I've got some leather boots from my pre-yoga days as well. But there's that as also. I don't wear them anymore. So those are just a couple that come to mind. Those are kind of the obvious ones. What else can we do practically?
We can talk about this.
Yeah.
So the the first principle, as you said, for yoga, yama is ahimsa, and the second of the 5 aspects of yama is satya, and satya is truth or truthfulness. And one thing which our society as a whole has become unfortunately too comfortable with is the untruth of animal slaughter. The fact that there are some 80 billion land animals slaughtered annually for human consumption, which is highly uneconomical, unhealthy for the climate, unhealthy for the earth. Everything about it is just wrong. And the meat industries have very, very powerful lobbies that are continually working like 24 hours a day to make sure that everyone ignores these truths. The slaughterhouses are kept closed so that no one can see what's going on. So Satya, talk about it. Read about what's going on and start talking about it. That's what I think is a very practical step that we can all take. And that becomes also a method of developing community. Of course, it's also a way to make enemies, depending who you're talking to.
Yeah. But that's
I think it's necessary. If we become well informed, then we may begin to influence people in positive ways.
Yeah. I love that. It's important for us to speak our truth, and I think there's a way to do it. Like, I know when I first discovered yoga 15 or 16 years ago and became vegetarian, and I first came back home here to Ontario, Canada, and telling all my family and friends, you need to do yoga, you need to be vegetarian, and that was not effective at all at inspiring them. But then over the years, right, they see that I've become a little bit healthier, a little bit happier, a little bit, things are working well, and so they ask questions. So there's a way that, just what you did as well. You're not saying you should do this. You're not pointing your finger telling us what to do, but you're sharing some facts. You're sharing your personal experience and beliefs, and and everybody is free to kind of see how it resenates and experiment.
Right.
It's a beautiful conversation.
Yes, finger waving doesn't work.
No.
Shaking our fingers at people, that's what's the term for it? A kind of self-righteousness. What's the other term? There's moral grandstanding, and so on. And I see here in the chat the question about purchasing slaughterhouse food for animals, for one's companion animals. These so many such issues come up, and I would say one has to be very careful not to go over the top as being seen as fanatical. My own principle is I've decided for myself certain principles to follow. And if someone is interested, I'll tell them, this is what I do. but I'm not so much of a campaigner. Others may be more campaigners, and that's also a good thing, but to do it, unfortunately, a lot of people who are championing a vegan way of life put themselves in a position of moral righteousness, which is kind of self-defeating. People are not so impressed with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that you kind of clarify that and remind us of the importance. I'd be curious, because they don't have a voice. We talk about speaking about this and being in conversation and just uncovering the Satya, the truth. What do you think? If an animal could speak to humanity today, what do you think? What would they ask from us?
There have been there's a lot of literature, including children's books, where animals are speaking, and it's, I think, an interesting feature of human culture that we do imagine animals as voicing, as usually we think of them as sort of human beings in animal bodies. One of the stories that I tell in Yoga and Animal Ethics from the Mahabharata, the classic epic, Sanskrit epic of ancient India, is the story of one ascetic, Jajali, and a merchant, Tuladara. And Jajali has been in the forest practicing extreme austerities, such that he would stand completely still, inspiring a couple of sparrows to build a nest on his head and raise a family there. So he stays completely still for several weeks and until the chicks are grown enough to fly away, and then they all fly away. And then Jajali, finally he allows himself to move. But at this point, he expresses great pride in his accomplishment. And a voice from the sky says, in effect, well, you're not so great, really. There's this merchant in Varanasi, and he is spiritually more advanced than you, although he's just an ordinary merchant. You should go and learn from him. Excuse me. It's a longer story, but here the point is, to get back to your question, at the very end, the merchant suggests to the ascetic, after he's given him some very wise words, he says, why don't you call back those birds that you hosted on your head and listen to them? So then he calls the birds, and the birds come back. And the birds give him lessons. And the birds essentially say, the highest truth, the highest value is actually faith. And in this position of faith, you will be in a position where you can honor properly all beings and yourself remain in a humble position. So the voice of the birds comes through very strongly at the end of this story.
That's beautiful. And I feel, I'm actually babysitting my sister's dog right now, and we're just getting to know each other. Just arrived yesterday. and they communicate. Animals, they do talk to us, and of course the animal lovers, they know that. And so just taking the time, whether it's with a cow in India or a local pet, whatever it happens to be, that's beautiful. So just one more question, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. So if friends here have questions, be ready to raise your virtual hand or drop it in the chat. But just really seeking your guidance, Maharaj. And this could continue in the realm of our multi-species community conversation, or even just Bhakti in general, this being the Bhakti Yoga Conference. Just really whatever is on your heart. What guidance would you offer to someone just beginning this path of Bhakti Yoga?
Beginning the path of Bhakti Yoga, well, I would say it's very much, as you say, a path. And the idea of this path is how we get on the path is mainly through opening our ears and listening. And there's a lot of encouragement to ask questions, to question, doubting is not a bad thing. And I was just reading today one of what's considered the last of 4 verses in the Srimad-Bhagavatam Purana, considered to be the essential Bhagavatam. Etavaneva jigyasa tattva jigyasunatmana anvayavyatarekavyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada, which means that one should go on questioning sarvatra, everywhere, and sarvada, at all times, about tattva vijnana, about the highest truth, what we sometimes call the absolute truth. And to bring this back to the subject of community, we are social beings, and we need to live in community. And so this is the bhakti path of yoga is not a loner path. It's a path which we tread together with others. And this is not always easy because we're all so different. And what I'm suggesting when I say, what about multi-species community? Well, that's even more difficult. These are challenging subjects, but what more valuable thing to pursue than the path of the heart? You mentioned the heart, and I like very much one of our earlier acharyas or teachers of the Bhakti tradition, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, speaks of Hrid Gagana, which means the sky of the heart. I think we're all interested in expanding the space of the heart in the sense of our consciousness, that which matters to us, that which is meaningful for us. And that expansion process, I would say, is very much at the core of what bhakti devotion is about.
I love it. I love how you brought that all together, from the multi-species community to sacred community to this path of bhakti. And as you say, it's important to be in conversation and to ask questions. And with that said, we've got our first question on deck here. Let's bring our friends, Sarah and George, on. So happy to have you here with us, longtime members of the community. We're here so consistently last year at Bhakti Yoga Conference. Welcome back.
Hi. Thanks for having us, and welcome, Maharaja. Thank you for your talk. Yeah, Jack told me that this one was going to be on animal ethics and welfare, so we thought we'd definitely have to come to this one and ask a question. A bit of background, we're vegan, but we have a cat, and obviously we have to feed our cat meat because he's an animal, he's an obligate carnivore, so we have no choice in that, and we want him to stay alive, so that's what we do. We don't feel desperately comfortable with it, but we do it anyway because we love him and he's alive. I've just started volunteering for Cats Protection, which is a really big charity in the UK that sort of deals with rehoming cats and cat welfare, which is quite exciting because I love cats, so here we are. And they work quite hard to effectively reduce the number of cats. They don't kill them, but they rehome them, and if there's they try and stop people breeding so they can adopt cats instead, which is great. And they're also neuter ferals, which reduces the cat population in the whole, which is great for not eating all the little animals and not having to buy more meat than is necessary effectively.
It's also good for the bird population.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. So as I say, our own cat, he's an outside cat, so we do get mouse presence, unfortunately, but there's not much we can stop him from doing apart from keeping him inside. But my question was, because I'm starting to get involved in the welfare side of this, obviously some cats come into care and they're ill and very sick, and they need medical attention, which obviously the charity provide if it's something that they need, which is great. And we obviously provide medical care for our cats. But what's Bhakti's stance on euthanasia? Because I know, it's in the welfare world, sometimes a cat or an animal does need to be taken care of and put down for their own best welfare. So what's the kind of spiritual stance on that? Because I've never really read that before.
It seems to be, thank you for the question, it seems to be one of those issues for which you get different answers. Mm-hmm. I do remember that Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, M.K. Gandhi, better known as Mahatma Gandhi in the West, once called for a cow to be shot because this cow or a calf had been wounded in a way which he decided was not going to be repairable. So he decided that the most nonviolent thing to do in this case was to, as we say euphemistically, put her down. Mm. And what I see is there's, in a sense, unlimited issues that come up where one has to take them one at a time and make a decision depending on the particular factors as one sees them. Yeah. This is one of the principles of what is called the ethics of care. We have broad categories in Western ethical discourse. There's deontological ethics, ethics of duty, you can say. There's consequentialism, there's within that utilitarianism, there's virtue ethics, and much more recently there's been discussion of what is called the ethics of care, or care ethics. Yeah. And one of the principles of care ethics is recognizing that one size does not fit all, that particular circumstances will always be different. And this actually goes all the way back to Aristotle, who said, with all of the rules, all of the regulations, you add them all up, you find yourself faced in real life with unique situations where you have to make a decision. Yeah. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but I mean, we definitely come from the stance that if an animal is going to suffer and there's no chance of them getting better, then it's it's much kinder to put them out of their misery than to continue their suffering.
We had a very sick cat, didn't we?
We did. We had to put our own cat down this summer, and it was awful, but it was the best thing for him at the time.
One suggestion was made to me, I remember, by a devotee who cares for cows, who's in charge for many cows, said his kind of, how do you say, the point to decide yes or no of euthanasia is when the animal stops eating and drinking. At that point, he feels that's the time to say, okay. Others will disagree and say, no, you're interrupting their life. They need to go through to finish the karma of that body. Yes, but then there's your own karma in caring for someone. So it gets complicated.
Yeah.
And what are your suggestions on helping them pass spiritually? So let's say if they are...
if you're present while they're being,
yes, if you're present.
Well, devotees like to either themselves sing devotional song, the Hare Krishna mantra in our tradition, or play recordings of the singing. They will hear that, and the idea is that may reach to their, deeper consciousness and accelerate their spiritual progress. And of course, there's prasad from the deity, we would offer to Krishna, and then the remnants we would want the animal to take even a small amount of remnant. So like this, something can be done.
Okay.
I think the main thing is wishing them well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's a fantastic question. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful. Really great question. I love it. Well, let's send our love, gratitude, Sarah and George in Kent, UK, all the beautiful work they're doing with cat care. We just have a couple of minutes left.
Oh,
Time
flies.
It does, but there's just because you got expertise on this, would you just say something about? There's a question in the chat. I have a question regarding devotees who have animals. Should they be allowed to serve on the altar?
Oh, questions of purity. I would not discourage them myself. I would say, take a shower before you go on the altar. There will be high standard in temples, so it would be expected that one has showered and is wearing clean clothes and so on before going on the altar. One is also performing achamana, which is a kind of purification ritual. I wouldn't prevent someone across the board because of having animals. We have devotees who take care of cows in some of our communities, and they also, after they milk the cows, they may come take a shower and then go on the altar and offer the milk to Krishna.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that perspective. Really appreciate all of your answers. They really resonate. We're complete. One last question. Your book, Yoga and Animal Ethics. If for those who want to get a copy, where can we find that?
If you search the title on Google, Yoga and Animal Ethics, it'll take you straight to the publisher's website, and there you will see there's a big button that says download PDF or something like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. You sent me that link. I wanted to make sure that was available for everybody. So it's available.
It's available.
It's open access. Yeah. So we'll make sure to include that in the live replay for those who are not here live. Thank you so much for your time, Maharaj. What a beautiful really such a beautiful way to open up the conference, and really looking forward to being back together in person with you soon, hopefully.
Likewise.
Amazing. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Wishing you a beautiful rest of the day. We actually have another session in 1 hour from now. So if you like, get a snack, get refreshed, get some fresh air, get outside. And if you feel called, join us in an hour. But wishing you all an amazing rest of the day. And we'll see you soon. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.